Continuing on with the next tutorial. We just finished setting up our environment in PF_Track. We tracked a video and solved camera position. Now we are in 3D Studio Max, and I'm going to import and run the Max script that was created with PF_Track. First thing you want to do, this is pretty much how 3ds Max is set up, default settings. Come up to Max script, run script, and then you're going to find the folder that you saved your exported your script into. Oops. Let's see. It's actually under tutorials. Tracking. Disk. Exports. Alright. Once you find it, hit open. It automatically sets up your bottom right screen to the PF_Track camera that it created. You can kind of visualize that these 4 points are the 4 points that I tagged for export in PF_Track. And what we're going to do now is we have the environment set up. We're going to load the video clip, the same video clip that we used for PF_Track. So and if you'll notice down here at the animation bar, it stops at 400 frames. Let me pause it and answer this. Okay. Next we're going to come up to render, and you can just hit 8 on the keyboard to do the same thing. Go to environment, where it says environment map and none. Click on none. Double click bitmap. It should be the second one or the third one from the top, and then you're going to browse to your folder that has the video that you used in PF_Track. Same video. And then once you hit OK, it should click use map, which is what you want, and then you can close this. And next thing you want to do is come to your PF_Track camera portion of the scene right here, right click it, and go down to show background. Bam. My scene is pretty much set up. You'll notice that I have the 4 points here, and if we grab this slider bar and scroll through it, those 4 points, as I let go, and the video updates in the background, should stick to the 4 points that I had on the desk there. And there they are, every time. Alright, looks like a good track to me. Once you have that in place, you can use these other windows. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit to my points. And you can do all that just by clicking this button right here with your points highlighted. And what I'm doing is zoom in. I got a middle mouse scroll wheel on my mouse, and in 3ds Max 2008, 9, 9, and 2008. You can use that to scroll in and out, and then if you push in on your middle mouse button, you can actually move your scene around a little bit. It's a little quick tip. Okay, let's visualize that these 4 points are a plane on my desk, and what I want to do is set up a plane on or about equal to these 4 points. So go to my top view, create new, standard primitives, click on plane, and I'm just going to drag this in here. Wow, that was pretty good. That's pretty much how I wanted it. I'm going to come up to move this left a little bit, and if you look at the camera view, that's just about right where I want it. It doesn't line up perfectly with all 4 of my points, but for the purpose of simplicity, we're going to leave it where it is. I'm going to use my scale tool and just resize it just a little bit. I'm going to make it a little bit wider so it comes out all the way to the edge of the desk, and maybe a little longer. And then I'm going to scroll through and make sure that it lines up pretty much. And although my track wasn't perfect, you might not be able to tell that it's sliding any with the animation that we're going to put on here. Okay, plane is set up. Next thing you're going to do is hit M for material. Should pop up a material list here. I have my plane selected. What I'm going to do is apply this first material to the plane by clicking this apply material to plane button, and now you can see that this material is being used in the scene because the corners are whited out. You can also drag and drop materials onto planes. We're going to change this material from a standard, just click in standard, and change it to matte shadow. Alright, before I show you what that does, I'm going to put a standard material back onto the object, and in this scene, if you hit F9, this is what a rendered view of that scene looks like. Close that, go back to materials by hitting M, choose my matte material that we created just earlier, apply to object, close that, and hit F9. It does a quick render, and now you can see the plane is still there, but it's transparent. You can see through it, and one of the major features about it is that it catches shadow. We have nothing for cast a shadow yet, but we will in a second. We also don't have any light set up, but we will in a second. And now that that's in place, I'm going to right click, go to object properties, select see-through, and freeze this object, since we don't want to be moving around on accident. Now I can actually see through it and see my points and see the desk and everything. Next thing we're going to do is come up to create. Right here on the end you have 2 little gears. Select that and go to biped. The biped will create itself on Z-axis no matter which scene you select. So if I come in here, click and drag, it'll come onto the Z-axis no matter what. Well, I'm going to start on the top, click and drag, create my biped. using the same scale as the scene. I don't want it too big. So now I have a biped created. I'm just going to use the biped. Later on in a different tutorial, I'll show you how to link the biped to a mesh that you create yourself. I normally use ZBrush because it's very good at creating organic meshes, but you can pretty much link bipeds to anything you want. And the reason you would do that is because bipeds can be animated with bip files, which are motion tracking files, which is something else that you can do in PFTrack. You can actually do motion capture, like you see in TV where they put the little dots on people and capture the motion, and then you can use those motion files to animate your biped that you have linked to your meshes. Okay, I have my biped here. You can come through and change some of the settings, body type. You can throw a tail on it if you want, tail links, props if you want weapons or holding stuff like that. You can add any of that kind of stuff. But because we're just using a biped, I'm going to change the body type from skeleton to male so that he's a little bit thicker, if you look right here. And then now that that's done, I'm actually going to go to edit. I'm going to hit H to bring up my hit list. Select biped 1. Hit select and come to the motion tab. Here in my biped parameters, I want to add an animation. So what I'm going to do is go to Mixer, and I'm going to drag this out a little bit. I'm going to change this to a transition track, new clip, and then what I'm doing is right clicking on the transition track, coming down to new clips from files, and then inside your 3ds Max folder you should have a BIP folder, and then that'll have all your motion files in it. As you can see, there's a couple of motion files or different categories you can choose from. We're going to make ours, let's see, a drunken biped. So I'm going to click drunk, hit open, and we're actually going to do that again because I want it to keep going. From files, trunk, open. There's a transition between the two. So once you have your two files loaded, or whatever motion that you want your biped to do, you can close that, and you'll see that the biped is moved in its location here. Kind of scroll through, see which direction he's going in, and he's walking off of our scene. So we need to back it up pretty good ways. And one thing you want to do to back it up is this button right here. It allows you to move all without and you see where I stopped because your 3D renders on top of your video, and unless I mask this portion of the chair out, I'm going to keep my 3D from going over top of the chair so it looks realistic in some ways. Okay, you can close that, and now whenever I scroll through, I should have a drunken biped walking. I'm going to have to move him back some more. Go back to move all, and I'm just going to drag him up a little bit so that he doesn't walk off the edge of my table here. Looks pretty good. One thing that I need to do is my biped is too big. I don't get to see all of the animation. So what I'm going to do, every step he takes is a little too far. I'm going to go back, click this button right here. It allows you to modify. You come down to structure. You can modify things on your biped, and then later on, when you unclick that, they will be modified. I'm going to change the height. There we go. Put it at about half of what it was. And now that I made him a little shorter, come back here, turn that back off, and turn mixer mode back on, and he's back in his position for his animation. Kind of walk through that a little bit. He's doing his drunken walking thing, and he kept on going right off the scene. Maybe move him back a little more. Just trying to get my drunken little biped to stay on the table, which he keeps going off, which is no problem. We can go into mixer and change my transition time so that he's doing his transitional walking, and there he is. He finishes up a little bit early, but he's still on the desk. I may even bring it out just a little more. Walking across the desk, and bam. And I think I'm going to bring him down a little bit. So click my move all and drag him this way just a tad bit. Unclick move all and see where that puts him. Perfect. Okay, that's set up. Next thing we want to do real quick is set up our lighting. As you can tell, the mouse is right here, the shadow's right here, and I have a light reflecting off the table right here. So that would put the light to the right and behind my four markers. So here's my 4 markers. Let's call this plane my desktop. Come to create, lights, and target spot. I'm just going to create a target spot over here behind the desk a little bit and shining down onto the desk right in front of our object. That created it right on the x-axis, so we're going to have to come to move, bring the light itself up, and leave the light point at right around the same area. Come to modify and make sure that your shadows are turned on, and we can do a quick render by hitting F9. My shadows are turned on. I need a little bit of backlighting, and maybe turn the intensity of the shadow down a little bit. So shadow parameters, turn this down to about 7.7 and render it out again by hitting F9, and now my shadow is just about as dark as that shadow from the mouse. You can tweak it a little more on your own. Create another light. I'm going to set up an Omni light behind our object to create some backlight, and maybe even raise the Omni light up a little bit, and come to modifier list, turn shadow on for this one. I actually want to go to intensity and turn the intensity down a little bit for my Omni light, and I definitely want to turn shadow parameters down a little bit. Also, it created the shadow parameters at 0.7. Also, go ahead and hit that a little bit. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's correct. So I have a little bit of backlight there, and if I scroll backwards through and just hit F9 periodically, let's see how that shadow is being cast over the desk. There we go. Still have my shadow from the front light and minimum shadow from the Omni light. One thing I want to try to avoid, like on this scene right here, if I render this out, you'll see the shadow comes beyond the surface of the desk, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So I need to push that plane back just a little bit. So in order to do that, we're going to have to right click into the scene, come up and unfreeze all so I can move my plane. Select the plane, and in this scene specifically, I'm going to move it back just to the edge of the desk. And then wherever else in the other scenes, if it moves it back further, then that's fine. The main thing we're trying to avoid is casting shadows in places that shadows wouldn't normally be cast. So that looks good. We're going to render this out and see how it looks. To render it, you can hit F10 or go to render, and the first option is render. Choose your active segment, which is ranges 0 to 400, all the frames. Choose your size. I'm going to go ahead and put 720 by 480. I'm actually going to change it to 640 by 480 for YouTube purposes. And come down to render output, hit file, and then wherever you want to save your file. And then name it. This is going to be called motion, and I'm saving this as AVI. Hit save. It should come up with the setup options. This looks like a good one. And then make sure that your viewport is set to your PF track camera, and then select render. It will start rendering every scene from start to finish and put it together in a video for you in that location you just saved it. And then I will have an example of this video along with this video and my biped linked to a mesh, which will be another tutorial. Until then, thank you for your time.